Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Real Get to the Chopper. I'm your host Andy Godoy, and I'm back again with another one of these commentaries. I'm carrying on with this series of animated commentaries that I'm doing for the classic kids cartoon, The Real Ghostbusters. Currently going to be doing episode 3. Now this is the second time I will be doing this particular episode because podcasting doesn't always go the way you want it to do sometimes. Sometimes you end up recording something and I recorded this, but I thought I did, but obviously I forgot to press record. So I'll do it again. It was one of my favorite episodes. The episode I'll be doing is an episode called Mrs. Rogers' Neighborhood. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing this. I'm really enjoying doing the Ghostbusters sort of like animated series. And with that then, after the count of 3, 3, 2, 1, press play. So here we go then. So second time I've done this. I will say from the get-go, this so far has been my favorite episode that I had recorded of The Real Ghostbusters. I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy the first couple, but this one really felt like it found its feet. So again, always love that animated intro of that ghost, sort of like from the Ghostbusters logo, and the way it just goes into the logo there. And what I'd mentioned previously before was that for me here in the UK, I would finish school around 3:30, rush home. This would be on around 4:30 on ITV. Now ITV is a rival channel to the BBC over here. You had your kids lineup shows that would go on till like about 6 o'clock. And I would normally always go for BBC One, but ITV with this show had me hooked and I had to pick, I had to switch channels. So obviously I was missing something. I can't remember what I was missing, but I loved the Ghostbusters, The Real Ghostbusters. And so looking forward to watching this one again, actually. It caught me by surprise last time. I enjoyed it a lot more than I had done. So here we go. A beautiful little sort of Pleasantville little neighborhood where everything seems nice. So we got some hedges that are lions and a wonderful house. Sorry, it almost looks like something out of fairy tale. And these lions have come to life and scare off that poor little bird. The lions here always kind of reminded me of the terror dogs from the film The Ghostbusters, the original film. There's Janine filing her nails. Oh, I love this. I do love the way the Ghostbusters actually look. And I think I previously had mentioned the reason why the Ghostbusters look somewhat the same but different. And the way they're wearing different uniforms as well that are coloured. Reason being is, even Egon with his blonde hair looks familiar but looks different. But they were done like that because you're not allowed the likeness. But not just that, they needed to stand out for the toy line. I like this bit here. They're all waiting. So yeah, just looking at this, so apparently there was 7 series of the Ghostbusters. I've only got series 1 on DVD. I might end up buying the further series, I don't know, but for the time being I'm going to just do the series 1, then I'll move on to another animated thing until I can find it. So let's look at Mrs. Rogers' Neighborhood. On IMDb, it's one of their highest scored episodes. Well, you got a few more, like the Boogeyman, the Halloween Forever one, Citizen Ghost, and a few others. So this is one of the top rated ones. I love this. I just love the story. This is where it starts feeling more real spooky. And as we all know, this guy here, Lorenzo Music, did the voice of Garfield. And Maurice LaMarche, if memory serves me right, yeah, he did the voice of the Brain in Pinky and the Brain. So a really good overall voice talent sort of lot here. So obviously, the Mrs. Rogers neighborhood, it's like a little tribute to the kids thing, Mr. Rogers. Still can't believe Arsenio Hall. I like this little lady here, Mrs. Rogers, for a little bird, a little canary, or whatever it is, budgie. Now, it is quite nice, actually, watching, like, this animated show on such a big screen. First sign of being sinister there. Well, earlier on when she was by the window, and she was just the shadows. But for me, Arsenio Hall, he'll always be the guy from Coming to America. Need to do the 4K release of that film, Coming to America. Now, I always love that sinister music playing in the background. And I think this is the first Haunted House episode that we get. Quite traditional. It feels like... not movie-esque, but it's quite a solid episode, whereas the others felt a little bit more cartoony. This genuinely feels more spooky than the previous episode. Apart from this, where the ghost is called what? The ghost is called what? So yeah, I mean, like this, like parents back in the 80s or early 90s complained about sort of how spooky and it could, it was always a religious thing, group complaining. But for me, you know what? I love this. I love the spookiness. I love the fun. I love you never knew what you were going to get per episode because it was something different. And again, I think it was bright and colourful enough to, you're all watching something animated. It wasn't real. But there are some future spooky episodes which I'm looking forward to covering. Look at that sinister face there. Oh, I love that little budgie. Precious. Right, so I mentioned something about this. Now, when I previously recorded this and I lost the recording, that bird, Precious, turns into this red fire-breathing bird. And it kind of reminds me of the bird from an episode of the Real Ghostbusters called The Bird of Kildarby. Now, I'm just trying to see what season that's on. Just looking for it to see which season it was in. So the first season then is got 13 episodes. Season 2 ends up having, oh, that's a big scary beast, 65 episodes. Series 3, what? 13 episodes? That can't be right. Why Series 2 got so many? Now that must be wrong. Let's look for the Bird of Kildarby, or what it was called. I do love that creature design for that big demon thing, the creature what that she transforms into. Okay, like I mentioned before, the Bird of Kildarby is from season 2, episode 34. Wow. And yeah, it looks a little bit different. It's a lot bigger, that one, the Bird of Kildarby. I love this music where things are getting going and tense. And I always love the siren. I used to own the Real Ghostbusters action figures, and as always, you know, your parents chuck them away, you know, so I'd love to get them. I know they have been reissued. Right, look at that. Look at all the ghosts there. None of them really that spooky. I don't know why Ray's not shooting them. Mm-hmm. Right, so that's been fixed. Oh, here we go again. It's nice that it does feel like a haunted house with things coming to life, and it's quite treacherous for them. And you can be quite visual. And when the ghostly yelps, I don't know if you know, it's just a few frames ago, but the Ghostbusters looked a little bit different, like their hair colors. So I think a lot of the time, sometimes these got outsourced to be animated in Japan, I think, or colored. And that's why sometimes the characters look a little bit off. I don't think it was all, they had the matching who's who, the colors of the hair and so on. So that's why in certain frames they look that way. Now, sometimes they've got like a weird little pop song type thing like this in the background, just to make it a little bit more lighthearted. It's quite a nice little song in the background. This is where the house starts warping. That's quite creepy with all the hands coming out the walls. I suppose it feels like, that shouldn't be happening and everything's a bit claustrophobic, and now the angle's changed and then there's going to be something approaching from the bottom. And here we come, like a giant oven. I always did wonder, like, how come the shrapnel coming out back didn't sort of hurt them or damage them? But I suppose it's an animated cartoon. I thought these lions were going to be a bigger part and do a lot more. But again, it's a short episode. The Real Ghostbusters, you can only have one real tough fight with a main baddie, I guess. These are just sort of like the lower level ghosts. Now, I've mentioned it before, I really didn't like the style of animation change, and when the show changed from the Real Ghostbusters to Slimer and the Real Ghostbusters, I just felt it just looked a little bit cheaper. There's Mrs. Roger up to no good. A little sinister laugh. That was quite interesting, the way that big hand just appeared. And then we see, like, Peter Venkman possessed by what? Looks like a different skin color, and plus his hair's all sticky up. I don't know how they didn't realize something was wrong with him. Yeah, kind of his new haircut is like, it looks like it's been modeled on Guile from Street Fighter 2, or maybe that's who Guile copied his haircut from. He watched this episode, and there is Precious, the fire-breathing demon bird. Again, it's quite sinister. The shadows of the creature, what there. And he's heading towards the containment system. I like the way the bird's just sat in his head. That's quite a spooky shot there. Slightly drawn better than they normally would do. Peter's being conflicted. It was all somewhat believable what they said. love the way the bird's still trying to get its grip. That was quite creepy. Right, they've got Peter now, 2 different frequencies, which should be able to separate the ghosts. And there is Precious going to go and attack him. But look who saves the day here. We ain't going to stand for this. Slimer. Whoa, fire. Kicks it in the behind, gets stuck. Then they catch it. Now, this is one of the things that I mentioned in the previous podcast. In the cartoon, I love how they just threw the ghost trap and how it always landed on the, on the correct side. But how tough were these ghost traps? Because in the cartoon series, they throw these things around and they never fall apart. Look, all the way from up there. How long is that cord? Yeah, last time all the ghosts got released, obviously, was in the film Ghostbusters. I think it was Walter Peck who released them. And yeah, all the ghosts again took over. Poor Peter. He's going to get a little bit of help here from Slimer. Here we go. And there was always that love-hate relationship with Peter and Slimer. And again, that has been episode 3 of The Real Ghostbusters, Mrs. Rogers' Neighborhood. And you know what? I really enjoyed that. Guys, thank you very much for watching. See you all next time. Goodbye from me.